What if I told you that something as simple as not eating could be one of the most powerful weapons against cancer? Recent groundbreaking research is revealing that fasting doesn't just help you lose weight, it fundamentally rewires your cellular biology in ways that could prevent cancer from ever taking hold in your body. But here's what's shocking. Most people are doing fasting completely wrong. And some popular fasting methods might actually increase your cancer risk. Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal could literally save your life. Look, cancer isn't just bad luck or purely genetic. The latest research shows that up to 90% of cancers are caused by environmental and lifestyle factors, and that means they're largely preventable. Your diet, your eating patterns, and yes, your fasting protocols can either feed cancer cells or starve them into submission. I'm going to break down the cutting-edge science on fasting and cancer prevention, show you exactly how different types of fasting affect your cellular machinery, and give you the precise protocols that researchers are using to literally reprogram cells away from cancer. But first, let me ask you this. When was the last time you gave your cells a break? When did you last trigger the ancient survival mechanisms that have kept humans alive for millions of years? If you're serious about optimizing your longevity and cancer prevention, make sure to subscribe to Edge Genesis and hit that notification bell. We're diving deep into the science that could add decades to your life. Let's get started. Part 1. The Cancer Fasting Connection. What the science reveals. Scientific, authoritative tone. To understand how fasting prevents cancer, we first need to understand what cancer actually is at the cellular level. Cancer isn't just one disease. It's a breakdown in your body's quality control systems. Normal cells have built-in suicide mechanisms called apoptosis. When a cell becomes damaged or potentially dangerous, it destroys itself for the good of the organism, building the foundation. Cancer cells have learned to bypass this system. They ignore the signals telling them to die, they grow uncontrollably, and they hijack your body's resources to fuel their own growth. But here's where fasting becomes incredibly powerful. It reactivates many of the cellular quality control mechanisms that cancer cells try to evade. Introducing autophagy. The key mechanism here is called autophagy, literally self-eating. During fasting, your cells begin breaking down and recycling damaged components, including potentially cancerous cellular machinery. First major study. A landmark study published in Cell magazine in 2016 showed that fasting cycles dramatically reduced the incidence of cancer in laboratory animals. But more importantly, it showed that fasting didn't just prevent cancer, it made existing cancer treatments more effective while protecting healthy cells from damage. Mechanism explanation. Here's what happens at the molecular level. When you fast, your insulin levels drop dramatically. Low insulin creates a hostile environment for cancer cells because most cancers are highly dependent on glucose and insulin-like growth factor for fuel. IGF-1 connection. Fasting also reduces levels of IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. High IGF-1 levels are strongly associated with increased cancer risk, particularly for breast, prostate, and colorectal cancers. When you fast, IGF-1 levels can drop by up to 70%, creating a cellular environment that actively resists cancer formation. Introducing differential stress resistance. But perhaps the most exciting discovery is something called differential stress resistance. When you fast, your healthy cells go into a protective state. They become more resistant to stress, toxins, and treatments. Cancer cells, however, can't make this adaptation. This means fasting makes your healthy cells stronger while making cancer cells more vulnerable. The different types of fasting and their cancer-fighting effects. Now, not all fasting is created equal when it comes to cancer prevention. Different fasting protocols trigger different cellular responses, and some are far more effective than others for cancer prevention. Let me break down the research on each type. Intermittent fasting, 16 to 8 method. Let's start with the most popular form, intermittent fasting, specifically the 16 to 8 method, where you eat within an 8-hour window and fast for 16 hours. A study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry found that 16-8 intermittent fasting reduced markers of cancer risk and improved cellular repair mechanisms. But there's a caveat. However, 16.8 intermittent fasting alone may not be enough to trigger the deeper cellular changes needed for maximum cancer protection. The autophagy response doesn't really kick into high gear until you've been fasting for at least 18 to 24 hours. Extended fasting, 24 to 72 hours. This is where extended fasting becomes incredibly powerful. A groundbreaking study led by Dr. Valter Longo at USC showed that 48 to 72-hour fasts before chemotherapy dramatically improved treatment outcomes while reducing side effects. Autophagy Deep Dive. After about 24 hours of fasting, autophagy rates increase by 300 to 500%. This isn't just cellular maintenance. This is a complete cellular renovation program. Damaged mitochondria, misfolded proteins, and potentially precancerous cellular components are broken down and recycled. Fasting Mimicking Diet, FMD. Dr. Longo also developed what's called a fasting mimicking diet, a 5-day protocol that provides minimal calories while triggering the same biological responses as complete fasting. Studies have shown that doing FMD cycles once per month can reduce cancer risk factors and slow cellular aging. The FMD advantage. The beauty of FMD is that it's more sustainable than extended water fasting while still triggering profound cellular changes. Participants in studies saw reductions in IGF-1, improvements in stem cell regeneration, and activation of tumor suppressor genes. Periodic prolonged fasting. The most powerful protocol for cancer prevention appears to be periodic prolonged fasting, 3 to 5 day fasts done every 3 to 6 months. This approach maximizes the cancer protective benefits while allowing for normal eating and social life between fasting periods. Part 3. The cellular mechanisms. How fasting rewires your biology. Let's dive deeper into exactly what's happening in your cells during fasting that makes it so powerful against cancer. Understanding these mechanisms will help you optimize your fasting protocols for maximum protective effect. mTOR pathway inhibition. One of the most important changes during fasting is the inhibition of the mTOR pathway, mechanistic target of rapamycin. mTOR is like your cell's growth accelerator. When it's constantly activated by frequent eating and high insulin levels, it drives cellular growth and division, exactly what cancer cells love. AMPK activation. Simultaneously, fasting activates AMPK, AMP-activated protein kinase. Think of AMPK as your cell's energy sensor and survival switch. When AMPK is activated during fasting, it triggers a cascade of protective mechanisms, including enhanced DNA repair, improved mitochondrial function, and increased antioxidant production. Sirtuins and longevity genes. Fasting also activates sirtuins, often called longevity genes. These proteins regulate cellular aging and have powerful tumor suppressor functions. Sirtuin 1, in particular, helps maintain genomic stability and prevents the cellular chaos that leads to cancer. Stem cell regeneration. Perhaps most remarkably, prolonged fasting triggers stem cell regeneration. A study in Cell Stem Cell showed that 72-hour fasts completely regenerated the immune system in both mice and humans. p53 activation. Fasting also activates p53, often called the guardian of the genome. p53 is a tumor suppressor protein that monitors cells for DNA damage and either repairs the damage or triggers cell death if the damage is too severe. Ketone body production. During extended fasting, your liver produces ketone bodies as an alternative fuel source. These ketones aren't just energy, they're signaling molecules that have anti-cancer properties. Beta-hydroxybutyrate, the primary ketone, has been shown to inhibit tumor growth and enhance the effectiveness of cancer treatments. Part 4. The research. Specific cancer types and fasting. Now let's look at the specific research on different cancer types. The evidence is particularly strong for certain cancers, and understanding this can help you tailor your approach. Breast cancer. For breast cancer, the research is especially compelling. A study published in JAMA Oncology followed over 2,400 breast cancer survivors and found that those who fasted for at least 13 hours overnight had a 36% lower risk of cancer recurrence. The mechanism appears to be related to estrogen metabolism. Extended fasting periods allow estrogen levels to normalize and reduce the constant hormonal stimulation that can drive breast cancer growth. Colorectal cancer. Research on colorectal cancer shows that intermittent fasting can reduce the formation of precancerous polyps. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that alternate-day fasting reduced markers of colon cancer risk by up to 40%. Prostate cancer. For prostate cancer, the evidence centers around IGF-1 reduction. Since prostate cancer is highly dependent on growth factors, the dramatic IGF-1 reduction seen with fasting creates a hostile environment for prostate cancer cells. Brain cancer. Some of the most exciting research involves brain cancer. Glioblastoma, one of the most aggressive brain cancers, appears to be particularly vulnerable to metabolic interventions like fasting. Cancer cells in the brain are highly dependent on glucose and can't efficiently use ketones. This gives fasting a unique advantage. Brain cancer. Some of the most exciting research involves brain cancer. Glioblastoma, one of the most aggressive brain cancers, appears to be particularly vulnerable to metabolic interventions like fasting. Cancer cells in the brain are highly dependent on glucose and can't efficiently use ketones. This gives fasting a unique advantage. Leukemia and blood cancers. Research on blood cancers shows that fasting can help regenerate healthy immune cells while clearing out potentially cancerous cells. The stem cell regeneration triggered by prolonged fasting appears to be particularly beneficial for blood cancer prevention. Optimizing your fasting protocol for cancer prevention. Practical, actionable tone. So how do you put this research into practice? Here's how to design a fasting protocol specifically optimized for cancer prevention based on the latest scientific evidence. The Foundation Protocol. Start with a solid foundation of 16 to 8 intermittent fasting. This should be your daily baseline. It improves insulin sensitivity, reduces inflammation, and creates a less favorable environment for cancer cells. But remember, this is just the foundation. The enhancement phase. Add one 24-hour fast per week. This is where you start triggering deeper autophagy and cellular repair mechanisms. The research shows that 24-hour fasts are the minimum needed to activate significant tumor suppressor pathways. The Deep Cleanse Protocol. Once per month, do a 48 to 72-hour fast or fasting mimicking diet. This is your cellular deep clean. Maximum autophagy, stem cell regeneration, and cancer prevention benefits. Timing considerations. The timing of your fasts matters. Research suggests that fasting periods should align with your circadian rhythms for maximum benefit. End your eating window early in the evening and break your fast in the morning to optimize metabolic benefits. Pre- and post-fast nutrition. What you eat before and after fasting is crucial. Before extended fasts, reduce processed foods and sugar to make the transition easier. Hydration and electrolytes. During fasting, proper hydration and electrolyte balance become critical. Dehydration can actually increase cancer risk, so make sure you're getting adequate water, sodium, potassium, and magnesium during fasting periods. Exercise integration. Light exercise during fasting can enhance the cancer protective benefits by further boosting autophagy and improving insulin sensitivity. However, avoid intense exercise during extended fasts, as this can create excessive stress. Part 6. Who should and shouldn't fast for cancer prevention? Before we go further, it's crucial to understand that fasting isn't appropriate for everyone, and there are important safety considerations, especially when it comes to cancer prevention. Who benefits most? Fasting for cancer prevention is most beneficial for healthy adults with risk factors such as family history of cancer, previous cancer diagnosis, or metabolic issues like insulin resistance or obesity. Medical supervision required. If you have a current cancer diagnosis, you should never attempt fasting without medical supervision. While the research is promising, fasting during active cancer treatment requires careful coordination with your oncology team. Contraindications. Fasting is not appropriate for pregnant or breastfeeding women, people with eating disorders, those with type 1 diabetes, or individuals with severe kidney or liver disease. These conditions require consistent nutrition and medical monitoring. Age considerations. For older adults, the benefits of fasting must be weighed against the risks of malnutrition and muscle loss. The research suggests that older adults may benefit more from milder forms of intermittent fasting rather than extended fasts. Medication interactions. Many medications require food for proper absorption or to prevent side effects. If you're on any medications, consult with your healthcare provider before starting any fasting protocol. Part 7. Common mistakes that reduce cancer protective benefits. Even with the best intentions, many people make mistakes with their fasting protocols that significantly reduce the cancer protective benefits. Let me share the most common errors and how to avoid them. Mistake number 1. Inconsistent timing. Many people do intermittent fasting inconsistently, sometimes 14 hours, sometimes 18 hours, with no regular pattern. The research shows that consistency is key for triggering the cellular adaptations that prevent cancer. Mistake number 2. Poor food choices. Breaking your fast with processed foods, sugar, or inflammatory oils can actually increase cancer risk despite the fasting. Mistake number 3. Not long enough. Sticking only to 16/8 intermittent fasting without ever doing longer fasts means you're missing out on the deeper cellular benefits that come with extended fasting periods. Mistake number 4. Too frequent extended fasting. On the flip side, doing extended fasts too frequently can be counterproductive. Your body needs time to recover and rebuild between fasting cycles. Mistake number 5. Ignoring stress levels. Fasting during periods of high stress can actually increase cancer risk by elevating cortisol levels. Timing your fasts during lower stress periods maximizes benefits. Mistake number 6. Inadequate recovery. Not focusing on recovery between fasts, poor sleep, inadequate nutrition, excessive exercise can negate many of the cancer protective benefits of fasting. Why this isn't mainstream yet. The real obstacles. Honest, realistic tone. Now you're probably wondering, if the science is this compelling, why isn't every doctor recommending fasting for cancer prevention? The clinical trial reality. First, most of the strongest evidence comes from animal studies and small human trials. To get official medical recommendations, we need large-scale randomized controlled trials that cost tens of millions of dollars and take decades to complete. The funding problem. Here's the real issue. Who's going to fund a 20-year study on not eating? Pharmaceutical companies fund research on drugs they can patent and sell. Medical training gaps. Most doctors receive virtually no training in nutrition or metabolic interventions during medical school. They're trained to diagnose and prescribe, not to recommend lifestyle changes that prevent disease from occurring. The liability concern. Many doctors are also concerned about liability. It's safer to stick to established protocols than to recommend something that, while scientifically supported, isn't yet part of standard care guidelines. patient compliance assumptions. Finally, there's an assumption that patients won't comply with fasting protocols. It's easier to prescribe a pill than to teach someone how to implement strategic fasting safely and effectively. Implementing your cancer prevention fasting protocol. Let's make this actionable. Here's exactly how to implement a science-based fasting protocol for cancer prevention, starting today. Foundation building weeks 1 through 4. Start with 16-8 intermittent fasting every day. Eat your last meal by 6 p.m. and don't eat again until 10 a.m. the next day. This builds the foundation and allows your body to adapt to fasting. Enhancement weeks 5 through 8. Add one 24-hour fast per week. Choose a day with lower stress and fewer social commitments. Fast from dinner one day until dinner the next day. Optimization week 9 and beyond. Once per month, do either a 48 to 72-hour fast or a 5-day fasting mimicking diet. This is where you get the maximum cancer prevention benefits. Plan these extended fasts during lower stress periods. Ensure proper hydration and electrolyte balance, and consider light activities like walking or gentle yoga. Conclusion: the science is clear. Fasting isn't just an ancient practice or a weight loss trend. It's one of the most powerful tools we have for cancer prevention. By strategically timing periods of not eating, you can literally reprogram your cellular biology to resist cancer formation. Remember the key mechanisms: autophagy activation, mTOR inhibition, IGF-1 reduction, stem cell regeneration, and tumor suppressor gene activation. These aren't just biochemical pathways. They're your body's natural defense systems against cancer. You have a choice. You can continue eating constantly, keeping your growth pathways always activated, creating an environment where cancer cells thrive. If this video has opened your eyes to the power of fasting for cancer prevention, smash that like button and let me know in the comments. What's your biggest barrier to implementing a fasting protocol? I read every comment and often respond with additional tips and resources. Make sure you're subscribed to Edge Genesis with notifications